Some of the general settings you're going to find within the menus here. Under Settings, we've obviously got the General tab, naming the device, setting the date and time, choosing what format the date and time is, entering the daylight saving time, the start date and end type for the period, and then enabling the NTP. NTP is obviously a very good way of synchronizing the time more accurately to a time server, but many of them are going to be in this format where they are in a text-based name. The text-based name we are going to need to set the DNS servers within the network settings, which we'll come back to in a minute. Other options we've got is creating user accounts within the system. Now obviously this is showing all the default user accounts the system has. So the default admin user, when you're using the local login, would be all 8s with password of all 8s. The local password for the doing it through a web browser would be admin, and the password would be admin. Obviously there are all 6s for a user account and default for a user account, but you can create other user accounts and you can create other user groups. So in the user group side of things, obviously at the moment we have two settings, admin and user. We could add a group and we could call this group test, for example, and we could say actually all we want to be able to give them is the ability to, let's have a look, what do we want to give them? We want to give them PTZ control. We want to give them file backup or storage. Yeah, let's do file backup. We want to be able to play back all of the cameras, or perhaps I don't want to be able to play back camera 2. We want to be able to real-time all of the cameras, but again we could choose we don't want to allow them to see camera 2 again. We could save that, and obviously that creates our user group. Once you've got the user group in place, you can then come and add a user. We can call it a username, so again let's call this test. Obviously I didn't save the previous group, so I'm going to choose the one of the two groups already on the system, so admin or user, so we can see a default user account would have those settings, for example. Put in our password. I'm going to put in the word password and password. Okay, we could give it a name just to mean something in the menu, so that when you're looking at it, it's going to show up in the list in the background here. Again, we can adjust what the playback and the real-time monitoring status is. We can save that account, and that account will appear in the list. So if I just put test in here and save, we're going to appear in the list here. Okay. Other options we've got within this menu here, a lot of them we're not going to need, to be honest. So probably default, for example, if we want to reset any of the settings on the system. Import and export if we're looking at backing up a configuration, so config export. Or go and find that file and config import to re-import that setting. What the reboot schedule is for the system. You can switch this off, but by default it's going to reboot once a week, just to give it a chance to clean up any files, close down any open files, that type of thing. Okay, and the last one probably is upgrade, allowing you to upgrade the system itself. Now I mentioned we were going to go back and have a look at DNS, and this DNS would account for time servers, it would account for emails, it would account for all sorts of different options. So if we go into network, go into TCP/IP, obviously if I'm picking DHCP, so I'm picking up from a network, apart from not knowing where it's going to be, it's probably going to pick these up for me. Now I've used the Google ones, so 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4, or you could use your ISP's local DNS settings. That will turn that name into an IP address and the unit will be able to reach it. So again, I mentioned email. If you were coming in here, you would email, enable the server. This is again what I was saying, if it's a text-based name. If it's just an IP address, you don't need a DNS, but if you've got a name like this, or mailserver.midwich.com for example, then obviously you would need to have a DNS behind it. Whether or not using a username and password to authenticate against that server, and what type of encryption you're going to be running, and then obviously on top of that, what you want the subject to be, so NVR alert, who it's going to go to, and we can create a receiver list here, so we can have more than one person it's sending it to. We can then test that, save that, off it goes.